What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars. Today, we are looking at the brand spanking new version of The Witches. This was released relatively recently to the streaming service HBO Max. Yesterday, I reviewed the original film in anticipation and preparation to see this one, even though a few people here and there weren't exactly loving it. Thankfully, I don't care about the negative things that people have to say about remakes in general because I don't mind remakes. 9 times out of 10, I enjoy them because I can separate my experience and enjoy both versions for different reasons. You might be surprised, but even so, I'm not going to repine about this remake. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, repine, to complain. The Witches focuses on a young boy and his grandmother as they discuss what witches are like in real life, a subject that fascinates the boy until he runs into a swarm of witches at his hotel, all of which are plotting to wipe out every child in the country by transforming them into mice. The question comes down to, what can the boy actually do about this predicament when he himself actually gets turned into a mouse? So this is the part of the review where I would normally say, in general, what the movie did well, but because it's a remake, I'm going to actually primarily focus on what it did better than the original, and after that I'll talk about where the original came out on top. In a world filled with negative reviews, a lot of people are going to focus on these little things in the movie at certain points and then call the whole thing horrible because they didn't like that one thing, when in fact it does have some pretty good things going on. First of all, the pacing is 1,000 times better than the original film. The original movie felt too much like a companion piece to the book, where it was, there's this one scene and you'd be like, okay, yeah, I remember reading that in the book. And then there was another scene and likewise you remember reading that too. But it had a lot of issues with transitioning, getting from point A to point B. Why was the grandma telling her grandchild about witches in the first place? Why did they have to go to the hotel? These things weren't really explained in the original film, but they were in this one. And because of that small little addition, this movie felt more balanced, and it stands on its own 2 legs and does not require your knowledge in the books firsthand. If you have it, great. If you don't, no problem. In this film, the grandma is telling her grandchild about witches because he encountered one, and she needed to explain the warning signs. And they head to the hotel because the grandchild ran into the witch. So grandma knows there's a threat nearby and she wants to protect her grandchild. Going to the hotel in the original movie was not an act of protection. Truth be told, I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it wasn't protection. It had something to do with grandma's diabetes. I mean, you got me past that. Another great aspect of this film is the visuals, and that's something that I think a lot of critics will disagree with me on the most here because they'll be focusing a lot on CGI that isn't always the best. Now, in the movie's defense, I will just say this. The original movie had animatronic work that technically wasn't always the best either. So that kind of cancels each other out. The visuals that actually impressed me in this movie was actually the lighting and color palette, especially in what Octavia Spencer is wearing in the movie. She often wears a dress with a floral design. The flower petals are often different colors than the dress itself, and as a whole, it blends really well with certain scenes. In the beginning, the grandma presents her grandchild with yellow cornbread, while he drinks yellow orange juice in a yellow room, while she is, of course, wearing a yellow dress. And throughout the film, depending on which room of which building she's in, she changes that dress, and it ends up blending pretty well with the background. Like at the hotel when she's wearing a green and yellow dress with green gloves. You see it in the background, yellow flowers that look like the flowers on her dress, and on the other wall you see tall green plants that match the green that she wears. There's another shot in a store where the grandmother is wearing a multicolored purse, and in the store there's a million different things, all with different colors. One of them in particular was a multicolored gumball machine right next to her multicolored purse. This is a constant theme throughout the movie, and it tells me that somebody was really smart when they were planning out each of these scenes. I felt the same recently when I watched Netflix's The Babysitter, which did something really similar. I knew before I even saw the CGI that I was going to give visuals full points. And what about the CGI? Again, it's not as good as it could have been, but it is a kid's movie, which is why it doesn't really bother me. Same with the original and its animatronic work that wasn't always the best. I actually think the CGI work done on Anne Hathaway's face as a witch and how her jaw opens up is a nightmare-inducing thing for kids, and I am downright shocked that the movie is rated PG. Shocked. Kids these days would actually be scared of certain imagery in this film. As for where the original comes out on top, I would mostly say as a general rule, it's more magical than this movie. It's more nostalgic. There's more of a sense of wonder, and you can tell it's a Roald Dahl story much, much more than you can here. I also think the editing was much better in the original film when it came down to transforming the children into mice. You got to see the different steps of the transformation process in the first movie. It'll cut away and they'd have an elongated nose. It'll cut away and they'll have a little bit more hair. It'll cut away and then now have bigger teeth, and then they'll transform into a rat fully before scurrying off. It wasn't instantaneous like it was in this movie. In this movie, it's like snap of a finger. They fly up into the sky and they transform into a mouse, and then that's that. It's not as cool, honestly. Other editing things came down to editing sequences following around animatronic mice and interweaving that with shots of real mice. There was just a little bit more focus on that in the original film, and it's something that I really respected a whole lot more than what I respected here, which was like business as usual editing. Let's go ahead and break down my final score for a second. If you recall, my scores for the original film were 80% for the unbiased and biased scores, making it a well-rounded film all around. But how does this compare? First of all, the unbiased technical score is much lower at 68% because even though I love the color palettes of all these different scenes, I realized that there wasn't as much hardcore work into setting other things up, and the first film had a lot of great practical effects. The bias score, on the other hand, is a lot higher than the original at 88%. I really enjoyed the movie. I had a good time with it and personally liked its pacing much more than the original. Averaging out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 78%, 78 out of 100 possible stars, or a C+ letter grade, meaning I do think that the original movie is better, but only by 2%. In general, I think this movie follows that original story incredibly closely and should not be immediately disregarded because it wasn't exactly what you wanted out of the movie. That being said, I would like to hear your thoughts on this remake in the comment section down below. Is it really as bad as some people have put it out to be, or does it deserve some merit? Let me know. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out each and every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We think you're pretty.